He was a boy who moved through the small town quietly, not because he wanted to, but because the world around him often seemed too loud, too fast, and too unsure of what to do with someone like him. From the moment he took his first steps, people had been unsure. Some had smiles and gentle words, but there were others who stared, whispered, or shook their heads. He had Down syndrome, and though it did not define his heart or his mind, it made the path through life a little different. That difference meant he noticed things others missed. The patter of rain on the window, the rhythm of birds in the morning, the quiet hum of the refrigerator late at night, all these small details were treasures to him. They were pieces of a world he loved in a way the rest of the town often overlooked. School was a challenge. Every day he walked through the doors with a small backpack, the straps a little too tight on his shoulders, and a mix of nervousness and hope swirling inside him. Teachers tried their best, though not always with the patience he needed. Some classmates were curious, others kind, but many were cruel in ways that children often do without understanding why. Laughter could sting more than sharp words, and he knew this early. He learned to move carefully through the hallways, avoiding the harshest corners, keeping his gaze steady and his steps measured. He carried with him a small notebook, warm at the edges, where he drew patterns and shapes that made sense in a world that sometimes felt like it did not dot at home. Life was different. The house smelled faintly of old wood and cinnamon from the kitchen, a comforting combination that made him feel safe. His mother always had a gentle smile, the kind that seemed to understand things no one else did. She never treated him like he was broken, only like he was unique, and she had always believed in the quiet strength he carried inside him. There was a piano in the corner of the living room, old but polished, its black and white keys gleaming softly under the afternoon sunlight. It had been a gift years ago, a treasure that had mostly gathered dust until she sat down and let her fingers dance across it in the evenings. He would watch from the sofa, captivated by the movements, the music that seemed to flow like water, smooth and endless. At first, he only listened, letting the sounds fill the spaces in his chest, but soon he found himself reaching out, pressing a key here, a key there, feeling the vibration and the echo of the notes. It was strange at first, but something inside him knew it was right. His father worked long hours at a factory on the outskirts of town. He was a quiet man, practical and steady, with hands calloused from years of labor. He loved his son in the way he knew best, through small gestures, a repaired toy, a plate of warm food waiting on the table, a nod of approval when the boy accomplished even the simplest of tasks. He did not understand music much, but he could see the joy it brought his child, and he learned to sit back quietly, watching him play. In those moments, the house seemed to hold its breath, the world outside fading into the background as the boy and the piano spoke their secret language. The town was small, and everyone knew everyone else's business, or at least they thought they did. People often looked at him differently, a mix of pity and curiosity in their eyes. They saw him as fragile, as someone who needed help at every turn. Some were kind, offering smiles and words of encouragement, but others laughed when he tripped, stumbled, or made mistakes. Children at school would sometimes tease him, not fully understanding the weight of their actions. They thought it was funny, a game, until the look in his eyes told them it hurt. He did not respond with anger, though. He simply withdrew, retreating into his small world, where music and drawing and the quiet rhythm of daily life offered a refuge. The boy had a few close friends, children who saw beyond the differences and noticed the spark within him. They liked to sit together under the old oak tree behind the school, talking quietly or playing games that did not require speed or strength, only imagination. In these moments, he laughed freely, a sound that seemed to surprise those who had only seen him in silence. He would tell stories with his hands, drawing shapes in the dirt or arranging twigs in patterns that made sense only to him and his friends. In these friendships, he felt the warmth of acceptance, a validation that the world was not entirely unkind. Music became his companion, more constant than any friend, more forgiving than any teacher. Each evening, he would sit at the piano, his small fingers stretching to reach the keys, pressing them gently at first, unsure, then with growing confidence. He discovered melodies hidden in his mind, some soft and delicate, others bold and commanding. Sometimes he played simple songs he had heard on the radio. Other times he improvised, letting the rhythm guide him, letting his heart speak in notes and chords. When he played, the room seemed to change. The air shimmered with possibility, and even his parents, who had seen so many challenges and setbacks, could not help but be amazed. It was as though the boy had found a secret door to a world that existed just beyond the ordinary. A place where joy and talent and beauty could coexist. School was difficult, as it often is for children who are different. Teachers tried, but they had large classrooms and limited time, and some did not understand the patience required. Homework could be frustrating, reading aloud a challenge, and social interactions confusing. Yet, despite the struggles, he carried a quiet resilience. He did not give up easily. He tried again and again, sometimes failing, sometimes succeeding. And slowly, piece by piece, he learned to navigate the challenges that life threw at him. His parents encouraged him constantly, celebrating the smallest victories, a complete sentence written on the board, a puzzle solved, a kind word spoken to a classmate. These small triumphs became stepping stones, shaping the boy into someone who understood perseverance. There were moments when he would watch other children run freely, play sports, or laugh at jokes he did not understand. He sometimes felt a pang of longing, a wish to be included fully, to be seen without labels. But he never let the longing turn into bitterness. Instead, he returned to the piano, to the music that never judged him, that never laughed at his mistakes. It was a place where he could express everything he felt, everything the world had yet to understand. Each note was a declaration, each melody a statement of presence, a way of saying, I am here, I exist, and I have something to offer. As the years passed, the boy grew in skill and confidence, though he remained shy and cautious around others. Music had taught him patience, focus, and the power of dedication. He began to recognize patterns, to remember songs he had heard only once, to feel the emotion behind every chord. His mother often watched, astonished, as he played with a depth and feeling that seemed beyond his years. She would gently encourage him, sometimes suggesting songs, other times simply sitting in quiet awe, letting the music flow. It was in these quiet evenings, surrounded by the soft glow of lamplight and the warm hum of the house, that he began to realize the true power of his gift. Music was not just sound. It was connection, expression, and voice. Outside the house, the world remained unpredictable. There were days of laughter and mockery at school, days of misunderstanding and impatience from strangers. Yet each challenge only seemed to strengthen his resolve. He learned to ignore the whispers, to rise above the snickers, and to focus on what brought him joy. He learned that people often fear what they do not understand, and that his differences, while sometimes a source of difficulty, were also the very things that made him remarkable. He carried this knowledge quietly, a secret armor that gave him strength when the world seemed heavy. The boy had dreams, quiet ones, tucked away in the corners of his mind. He dreamed of playing in front of people who would listen, who would feel the music as he did, who would see past the surface and into the heart of the notes. He dreamed of a day when laughter would no longer sting, when applause would replace mockery, when his abilities would be recognized and celebrated. He did not speak these dreams often. He kept them safe, nurturing them like delicate seedlings, knowing that one day they might grow into something extraordinary. and so he moved through his days with quiet determination, carrying his small notebook, watching the patterns of the world, and returning each evening to the piano that had become both friend and teacher. Every key he pressed, every melody he created, was a step toward the future he imagined. The town might not yet understand him, the school might not yet accept him fully, and the children might still laugh, but in the music, he found a truth that no one could take away. He was not broken, not limited, not invisible. He was a boy with a gift, a boy with courage, a boy whose heart and hands were poised to surprise a world that had not yet learned to see him. The boy loved spending time at home, especially in the small living room where an old piano sat quietly in the corner. It had been in the house for many years, its wooden surface scratched and worn from decades of use. His mother would often sit on the bench, playing soft tunes that filled the room with warmth and calm. The boy would watch her, fascinated by the way her fingers danced over the keys, creating music that seemed to float in the air like a gentle breeze. He didn't know the names of the songs or the notes she pressed, but the sound made something inside him stir, a feeling he could not yet put into words. At first, he only watched. He would sit on the edge of the couch, leaning forward, eyes wide with curiosity, as if the piano itself had a magic that he wanted to touch. His mother noticed how he followed her movements, mimicking the gestures with his little hands, tapping the edge of the keys without making actual music. Sometimes he would hum along to the tunes, a soft, tentative sound that was more a whisper than a song, but it carried a pure, innocent joy. His mother often smiled, though she thought it was just a game, a child's playful attempt to join in the music. Days turned into weeks, and the boy's curiosity grew stronger. One afternoon, when his mother was busy in the kitchen, he quietly approached the piano. He placed his small fingers on the keys and pressed down gently. At first, it was just random sounds, clumsy and uneven. But as he pressed more keys, something strange began to happen. He felt a rhythm in his hands, a sense of order in the chaos of sounds. He tried to repeat what he had heard his mother play, remembering the patterns, the way the keys rose and fell under her fingers. To his surprise, some of the notes sounded right, like little pieces of the song he had heard before. The boy spent hours this way, experimenting, pressing keys, and listening. He didn't know the rules of music, and he couldn't read sheet music, but he felt the music in his heart. Every time he played, he felt a thrill, a happiness that no one had ever explained to him. He wanted to hear more, to create more, to make the piano speak the way his mother did. Sometimes, when he got it just right, he would clap his hands softly, proud of himself, and then run to tell his mother what he had done. She would kneel down beside him, her eyes shining, and say, "You have a special gift." Though she didn't fully understand it yet. At school, the boy's days were often difficult. He struggled with tasks that came easily to other children, and some classmates laughed at the way he spoke or moved. Teachers were kind, but they didn't always have the time to give him extra attention. Still, the boy found moments of happiness whenever he could. He would remember the piano at home, the sound of the keys under his fingers, and it gave him a quiet strength. It became his secret place, the place where he could be himself without fear, without judgment. Sometimes his mother would sit with him, guiding his fingers gently over the keys. She would show him simple melodies, teaching him how to move from one note to the next. She never pressured him to learn quickly. She simply let him explore, letting his fingers find their own way. The boy listened carefully, repeating what she showed him, and soon he could play short tunes on his own. Every time he learned something new, his face would light up, a bright smile that could fill the room. Music had become his language, the way he expressed feelings that words could not reach. Evenings were the best time for the boy. The house was quiet. The day's noise had faded, and he could sit at the piano without interruption. Sometimes his mother would play beside him. Other times he would play alone, creating music that was all his own. He didn't care if anyone listened. He was lost in the sounds, the rise and fall of the notes, the way his hands moved almost instinctively. He began to notice that he could remember songs he had heard only once and could play them back, sometimes even adding his own touches. It felt magical, a secret power that belonged to him alone. One day, his mother watched in astonishment as he played a melody perfectly after hearing it only once. She had never given him formal lessons, and yet he remembered the tune, every note in order, with a gentle expression of feeling that seemed beyond his age. Tears came to her eyes, not from sadness, but from awe and pride. She realized then that the boy's talent was real, something extraordinary that needed to be nurtured, not hidden. She began to sit with him more often, encouraging him, listening to him play, and telling him stories about music and the joy it could bring to people's lives. As the weeks passed, the boy grew more confident. His fingers moved with greater skill and ease, and his understanding of the music deepened. He discovered that he could express emotions through the piano in ways that he couldn't with words. When he was happy, the music was light and lively. When he felt sad, the notes became soft and tender, carrying the weight of his feelings. The piano had become a friend, a companion that understood him completely, offering comfort, joy, and freedom. Neighbors and relatives began to notice his progress. When family came over, they would ask him to play, curious about the boy who spent so much time at the piano. Some were skeptical at first, thinking it was just a child's playful attempt, but soon they were impressed by the clarity and emotion of his music. They would sit quietly, listening to the small boy fill the room with melodies that seemed to come from a place deeper than understanding. The boy loved these moments, but he never played to impress others. He played because it made him feel alive, because it was a part of who he was. The boy also began to develop his own sense of creativity. He would mix pieces of songs together, inventing new melodies that no one had heard before. Sometimes he would close his eyes as he played, letting the music guide his fingers rather than looking at the keys. It was as if the piano had become an extension of himself, a way for his thoughts and emotions to flow freely into the world. His mother watched with wonder, amazed by the depth and sensitivity in his playing. She knew that something remarkable was unfolding before her eyes, something that could change not only his life, but also the lives of those around him. Despite the joy he found at home, the boy sometimes felt the sting of the world outside. School could be cruel, and he knew that some people didn't understand him. But the piano became his shield, a place where he could retreat when life felt hard. He would play for hours, letting his emotions pour out until the tension and sadness melted away. Music gave him courage, teaching him that even if the world laughed or doubted him, he had something special that no one could take away. Over time, the boy's talent became impossible to ignore. Teachers began to notice the spark in his eyes when he talked about music. Friends started to show interest, asking him to teach them simple tunes. Even classmates who once laughed began to listen, fascinated by the beauty of his playing. The boy never let their opinions sway him. He remained focused on the joy of creating music, letting it be his voice in a world that didn't always understand him. Through it all, his mother remained his greatest supporter. She celebrated every small victory, every new song learned, every moment of courage. She encouraged him to explore music further, to imagine what he could do if he continued to grow and practice. She also taught him patience and humility, reminding him that talent was a gift, but dedication and love for what he did were equally important. The boy absorbed these lessons, not fully understanding all the words, but feeling their truth in his heart as he played. The bond between the boy and the piano deepened with each passing day. It was no longer just an instrument. It was a part of his life, a constant companion that offered understanding and expression. He discovered that music could bring people together, that it could touch hearts and make strangers feel emotions they hadn't known before. He dreamed of one day sharing his music with the world, though he didn't yet know how. For now, he was content to play, to learn, and to let the melodies carry him wherever he wished to go. One evening, after a long day at school, the boy sat at the piano and began to play a tune he had created himself. It was soft at first, almost hesitant, but then it grew in confidence and beauty. His mother sat nearby, listening in silence, her heart swelling with pride and amazement. She knew that this music was more than just notes. It was the boy's soul speaking, telling a story that words could not capture. She reached out, taking his small hand in hers for a brief moment, and whispered, "You are amazing. Never stop playing." The boy looked up, a shy smile on his face, and continued to play. In that moment, he felt a deep connection to something greater than himself. He felt hope, joy, and a sense of purpose. The piano had given him a voice, and he was ready to explore it fully, one note at a time. Though the world outside could be harsh and unkind, he knew that within the music, he had found a place where he belonged, a place where he could shine and be celebrated for exactly who he was. The school announced the annual talent show, and the boy's mother noticed a spark in his eyes the moment she told him. His excitement was clear, but so was a hint of nervousness. The boy had never performed in front of a crowd before, and the thought of all those people watching made his stomach twist with anxiety. Still, he could not hide his desire to play the piano on that stage. His mother knelt beside him, taking his hands in hers, and whispered words of encouragement. She reminded him that it was about sharing his music, not about winning or impressing anyone. The boy nodded, trying to calm the fluttering in his chest. At school, the announcement spread quickly. Students buzzed with excitement, talking about their own performances or guessing who would win. When they heard that the boy with Down syndrome planned to play the piano, some whispered and snickered behind his back. A few classmates even laughed openly, assuming it would be amusing to see him try. The boy overheard some of the comments, and his heart sank. The weight of their doubt was heavy, but he refused to let it stop him. Music had always been his refuge, and he decided that this time it would be his shield. In the days leading up to the show, the boy practiced diligently. Each afternoon, he would sit at the piano, letting his fingers dance over the keys, memorizing the piece he had chosen. He played slowly at first, then gradually increased the speed, trying to perfect every note. His mother often sat beside him, offering gentle guidance and reassurance. Sometimes she hummed along, sometimes she clapped softly at the end of a particularly challenging section. She never forced him, never pressured him. She simply encouraged him to trust himself. Little by little, his confidence grew, and the music he played became more fluid and expressive. Meanwhile, the school was filled with anticipation. Posters announcing the talent show decorated the hallways, and students practiced for their own performances. Some kids teased him relentlessly, making jokes about how funny it would be to see him on stage. The boy tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the music that flowed from his fingers. Each note gave him courage. Each melody strengthened his resolve. The more he played, the more he felt ready, not for their approval, but for the chance to share a piece of himself. His teacher, who had watched his progress quietly, approached him one afternoon. She had noticed how his fingers moved naturally, how the music seemed to flow effortlessly from his heart. She asked if he felt ready for the show, and he nodded shyly, though his hands trembled slightly. She smiled and reassured him that it didn't matter what anyone else thought. What mattered was the joy he brought through his music. Her words comforted him, reminding him that the stage could be a place of beauty, not fear. The day of the talent show arrived, and the school auditorium buzzed with excitement. Students, parents, and teachers filled the seats, chatting and laughing, waiting for the performances to begin. The boy waited backstage, feeling a mix of nervousness and anticipation. His heart raced, and he took several deep breaths to steady himself. His mother knelt beside him, smoothing his hair and whispering that he could do it. She reminded him to play the music he loved, to let it speak for him. The boy closed his eyes for a moment, imagining the piano at home. The sound of the keys under his fingers, and the calmness returned. When his turn was called, he walked slowly to the stage, feeling the weight of dozens of eyes on him. Some students snickered, and a few teachers looked on with quiet curiosity, unsure of what to expect. The boy's fingers brushed against the piano keys, and for a moment, silence filled the auditorium. He felt the wood beneath his hands, the familiar grooves in the keys, and a deep sense of comfort washed over him. He closed his eyes and began to play. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, but quickly grew in confidence. The melody unfolded with a gentle strength, each note carrying emotion that resonated with the audience. Some students stopped whispering, their eyes widening in surprise. Teachers leaned forward, listening intently. The boy's playing was precise, yet filled with feeling, as if each key told a story only he could share. The auditorium, once filled with chatter and doubt, became silent. Captivated by the beauty of the music dot, as he continued, the boy's nerves faded, replaced by a sense of connection. He felt the music flowing through him, guiding his fingers across the keys. The audience was no longer a group of strangers. They became listeners of his story, witnesses to the heart that spoke through each note. The laughter that had awaited him was gone, replaced by awe and admiration. Some parents held their breath, moved by the purity of his expression. Even the classmates who had teased him could not look away, their eyes wide with surprise and respect. The piece reached its crescendo, a moment of intensity that made the entire auditorium lean in. The boy's fingers flew across the keys, executing intricate patterns with remarkable precision. The emotion in his music was palpable, filling the room with a warmth and depth that few expected. For those watching, it was not just a performance. It was an experience, a window into a world of creativity and courage that they had never imagined. When the final note lingered in the air and faded, a hush remained for a heartbeat, as if everyone needed a moment to absorb what they had just witnessed. Then, slowly, the applause began. At first tentative, it quickly grew into a thunderous ovation. Students jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering. Parents wiped away tears, moved by the sincerity and brilliance of the performance. Teachers exchanged astonished glances, realizing they had underestimated the boy. Even some of the classmates who had laughed before were now clapping with genuine admiration. The boy opened his eyes, taking in the reaction, and a shy smile spread across his face. For the first time, he felt seen, appreciated, and understood in a way he had never experienced before. Backstage, his mother rushed forward, embracing him tightly. She whispered how proud she was, tears of joy streaming down her face. The boy felt a surge of happiness, knowing that his music had touched others in a profound way. He realized that all the hours of practice, all the moments of doubt, had led to this one experience where his gift could shine. The talent show was no longer about fear or judgment. It was about sharing his heart, and he had done so brilliantly. In the days that followed, the boy became a topic of conversation throughout the school. Teachers praised his talent, students approached him with respect and curiosity, and parents expressed amazement. His performance had left a mark, challenging preconceived notions and demonstrating that ability and brilliance could come in unexpected forms. The boy himself remained humble, not seeking fame, but quietly proud of what he had accomplished. Music had given him a voice, and now the world could hear it. The talent show became a turning point, not just for the boy, but for the school as a whole. It reminded everyone that kindness, patience, and encouragement could help talents flourish. It showed that laughter and doubt could be replaced by understanding and admiration. And for the boy, it was the beginning of a new chapter, one where his confidence grew alongside his skills, and where he knew that music could bridge gaps and bring people together. The experience stayed with him, a memory of courage and triumph, and it fueled his desire to continue playing, to continue sharing the gift that had always been within him. The day of the big performance had finally arrived, and the boy felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that made his heart pound. The school auditorium was alive with chatter, laughter, and anticipation as students, parents, and teachers filled the seats. The lights shone brightly, casting a warm glow over the stage. The boy waited backstage, his small fingers brushing nervously against the keys of the piano he would soon play. His mother stood nearby, holding his hand and speaking softly, offering calm reassurance. She reminded him that he was there to share his music, not to prove anything to anyone. The boy could hear the applause for other performers echoing through the hall. Some students had sung, some had danced, and some had played instruments. Each performance received polite claps, but he noticed a few whispers directed at him, teasing and doubting that he could perform. Some classmates laughed quietly, certain that it would be entertaining to see him struggle. The boy closed his eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the music that lived in his heart. He told himself that no matter what happened, he would play for himself and for the joy that music gave him. When his name was called, he walked slowly onto the stage, his small frame almost swallowed by the bright lights. The auditorium seemed to hold its breath as he approached the piano. For a moment, the boy felt the familiar anxiety rise, but he remembered all the hours spent practicing at home, the gentle encouragement of his mother, and the music that had always been his companion. He sat down on the bench, adjusted the position of his hands, and let the first notes escape. The music started softly, almost like a whisper, filling the auditorium with gentle sounds that immediately captured attention. His fingers moved carefully at first, but as the melody continued, they grew more confident. Each note was played with purpose and feeling, conveying a story that words could not express. The audience began to quiet down, listening intently. The laughter and whispers faded as everyone became absorbed in the music. Teachers leaned forward, surprised at the skill and emotion of his playing. Students who had teased him sat frozen, eyes wide with awe. As the boy continued, the music flowed more freely. The notes rose and fell with precision and expression, carrying the emotions of joy, hope, and wonder. He lost himself in the sound, letting his heart guide his fingers. The room seemed to disappear, leaving only him and the music. The audience could feel the depth of what he was conveying. The melody spoke to them, bridging the gap between the boy and everyone watching. Some parents had tears in their eyes, moved by the sincerity and beauty of his performance. Even the classmates who had mocked him could not hide their astonishment. The boy's confidence grew with every measure, and he began to add subtle variations, small improvisations that made the performance uniquely his own. The audience sensed the authenticity of his playing, how each note reflected his feelings and his journey. It was no longer just a song. It was a testament to his perseverance, his love for music, and the hours of dedication he had spent perfecting his craft. The music became a language, one that transcended barriers and touched the hearts of everyone present. The crescendo of the piece approached, and the boy's fingers danced across the keys with grace and accuracy. The sound was rich and full, resonating through the auditorium in a way that demanded attention. Every chord, every rhythm conveyed emotion, drawing the listeners deeper into the story he was telling. The tension in the room built, and then, with the final notes, the music gently faded into silence. For a moment, There was nothing but stillness, as if the audience needed time to process the experience they had just witnessed. Then the applause began tentative at first and quickly grew into a full, thunderous ovation. Students jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering. Parents wiped tears from their eyes, overwhelmed by the beauty and emotion of the performance. Teachers exchanged astonished glances, realizing that they had underestimated the boy's abilities. Even those classmates who had laughed earlier were now clapping with genuine admiration. The boy looked up, a shy smile on his face, feeling a warmth he had never known before. For the first time, he experienced the profound impact of sharing his gift with others. After leaving the stage, his mother embraced him tightly, her eyes filled with pride and tears. She whispered how proud she was of him, and reminded him that he had shared something very special with the world. The boy felt a surge of happiness and relief, knowing that all the hours of practice, all the moments of doubt, had led to this experience. He realized that performing on stage had not only shown his talent to others, but had also strengthened his own belief in himself. In the days following the performance, the boy's life at school began to change. Teachers praised his talent, acknowledging the dedication and heart he had shown. Students who had once teased him approached with curiosity and admiration, wanting to learn more about his music. Parents complimented him, expressing amazement at how a young boy with Down syndrome could play with such emotion and skill. The boy remained humble, not seeking attention or accolades, but quietly proud of what he had achieved. He continued to play the piano at home, sharing his music for the joy it brought, not for recognition. The performance also had a ripple effect on the school community. It reminded everyone that talent could come in many forms, and that assumptions based on appearances were often wrong. The boy's courage and skill inspired others to pursue their own interests, to embrace challenges, and to support one another. The experience highlighted the importance of encouragement, understanding, and patience in helping every child discover and develop their potential. The boy's confidence continued to grow with each passing day. He began exploring more complex pieces and experimenting with his own melodies. Music became not only a source of personal expression, but also a way to connect with others. He discovered that when he played, he could communicate feelings that were difficult to put into words. His talent became a bridge, allowing him to share his inner world with those around him. His mother remained his steadfast supporter, attending to every need, guiding him gently, and celebrating every milestone. She recognized that the boy's talent was extraordinary, but she also knew that the most important thing was nurturing his love for music and his self-belief. She encouraged him to dream bigger, to imagine a future where his gift could reach even more people. Together, they explored different types of music, trying new pieces and practicing daily, always focusing on the joy and fulfillment that music brought. The boy also became more aware of the reactions of others. He noticed how people's attitudes shifted when they witnessed his abilities, and he realized that music had the power to challenge misconceptions and change hearts. This understanding gave him a sense of purpose. He wanted to continue playing, not just for himself, but to inspire others and show that every individual, regardless of differences, has the potential to shine. The piano had become a symbol of hope, courage, and expression in his life. Despite the newfound recognition, the boy remained grounded. He played not for fame or approval, but for the love of music. Every note, every melody, was a reflection of his feelings, his imagination, and his determination. His practice sessions continued to be filled with exploration, creativity, and emotion. The joy he felt when he played was infectious, and anyone who listened could sense the authenticity and heart in his performance. Through this journey, the boy learned valuable lessons about resilience, confidence, and self-expression. He discovered that challenges could be overcome with patience and dedication, and that sharing one's passion could create connections that transcend differences. Music had given him a voice, a way to communicate and inspire, and it had shown him that belief in oneself is as important as talent. He embraced this lesson fully, knowing that it would guide him in all aspects of life. The stage experience also taught the boy about the power of preparation and practice. He realized that talent alone was not enough. Consistent effort and focus were essential to achieving excellence. Every hour spent at the piano, every melody learned, every rhythm perfected had contributed to the performance that had captivated the audience. This understanding strengthened his resolve to continue learning, to keep growing, and to embrace every opportunity to share his gift with the world. As the weeks passed, the boy's reputation as a talented pianist spread beyond the school. Friends and family encouraged him to perform at community events, and he began to gain confidence in his ability to reach larger audiences. Each performance was a new adventure, a chance to connect with people through the language of music. He discovered that sharing his passion brought joy not only to himself, but also to those who listened, creating a cycle of inspiration and appreciation that enriched his life in countless ways. Despite the recognition, the boy remained humble and focused. He knew that the journey was just beginning, and that there was still so much to learn and explore. The piano had become an inseparable part of his life, a companion that offered comfort, expression, and purpose. He played not to impress, but to communicate, to share his heart, and to celebrate the beauty of music itself. Through his dedication and talent, he demonstrated that every individual has a unique gift, and that with love, encouragement, and perseverance, that GIF. After the talent show, the boy felt a new sense of freedom and excitement about his music. He could no longer think of the piano as just a private companion at home. The performance had changed something deep inside him. The applause, the admiration, and even the surprised looks of his classmates had opened a door. He realized that music could connect him to others in ways that words never could. Every time he sat at the piano now, he felt not only the joy of creating music, but also the possibility of sharing that joy with others. His mother noticed a change in him. He walked taller, spoke with a little more confidence, and had a quiet glow in his eyes. She encouraged him to continue exploring his gift, reminding him that talent was a responsibility as well as a joy. She also cautioned him to remain humble, to understand that the power of music came not from showing off, but from touching hearts. The boy took her advice seriously. He wanted to inspire and comfort others, not just impress them. At school, the boy's reputation grew. Teachers began to pay closer attention to his abilities, offering small opportunities for him to demonstrate his skill. Students who had once teased him approached him with curiosity, sometimes asking for tips on simple songs or offering encouragement. Even the principal recognized the impact of his performance and mentioned it in a school assembly, praising his courage and talent. The boy felt a mixture of pride and humility. He knew he was lucky to have a supportive mother and a school willing to give him a chance. The boy began to take his practice more seriously. He experimented with more challenging pieces, exploring the piano's full range of sounds. Sometimes he would stay up late, absorbed in the music, creating melodies that expressed emotions he could not explain in words. At times, he would play so softly that even he could barely hear, lost in the delicate beauty of a single note. At other times, he would let the music swell, filling the room with sound that seemed larger than life. Each session was an adventure, a journey into a world where he could express every feeling, every thought, every dream. His mother supported him every step of the way. She would bring him sheets of music from the library, suggesting pieces to try and listening patiently as he struggled through the difficult parts. She never scolded him for mistakes. Instead, she encouraged him to try again, praising small successes and celebrating each improvement. Her quiet patience and unwavering Belief in him became a foundation that allowed the boy to grow not only as a musician, but also as a confident individual who believed in his abilities. Boy began to notice that music could affect people in surprising ways. Friends who listened to him would smile or close their eyes, moved by the sound. Teachers would comment on how expressive his playing was, how it seemed to tell a story without a single word. The boy realized that music could bridge gaps between people, creating connections that went beyond ordinary conversation. This understanding filled him with a sense of purpose. He wanted to play not just for himself, but for anyone who needed comfort, inspiration, or joy. One afternoon, the boy's music teacher suggested that he participate in a small community concert. At first, he felt nervous about performing in front of strangers outside the school, but his mother reminded him of how he had conquered the school stage. She encouraged him to think of it as an opportunity to share his music, not a test of ability. With her support, he agreed to perform, excited by the chance to reach a wider audience. The community concert was held in a local hall filled with families and neighbors. As the boy walked to the piano, he could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on him, yet he also felt the thrill of anticipation. He took a deep breath and began to play. The music flowed naturally, each note carrying the emotions he felt deep inside. He played with sensitivity, adding subtle touches that made the melody his own. The audience listened quietly, captivated by the depth of feeling he conveyed. Some were moved to tears, others smiled warmly, and all were amazed by the skill and heart of the young pianist. After the performance, people approached him to offer praise and congratulations. Some parents asked how he had learned to play so well. Others marveled at the expression in his music. Even adults who had doubted his abilities were forced to reconsider, seeing firsthand what dedication and talent could achieve. The boy accepted the compliments humbly, grateful for the opportunity to share something so personal. He realized that the joy of music was amplified when it touched others, and this understanding fueled his desire to keep playing and growing. Over time, the boy's dedication and talent began to draw attention from wider circles. Local newspapers wrote short pieces about his performances, praising not only his skill, but also his courage and the inspiration he provided to others. Invitations to perform at school events, community gatherings, and small competitions arrived. Each time, he felt the same nervous excitement, the same sense of anticipation and challenge. But he also carried with him the lessons he had learned, to focus on the music, to trust in his own abilities, and to let the notes speak for him. Through all these experiences, the boy never lost sight of what mattered most. He continued to play at home, exploring new pieces and creating his own melodies. He cherished the quiet moments alone with the piano, where he could experiment and let his imagination guide him. These sessions reminded him that music was more than a performance. It was a source of comfort, joy, and self-expression. Each time he played, he grew stronger, more confident, and more attuned to the power of his gift. The boy also became aware of the impact he had on other children, especially those who felt different or doubted their abilities. Some students who had struggled with learning or confidence began to see him as a role model. They watched his dedication and perseverance, learning that with patience and practice, they too could achieve more than they had imagined. The boy did not seek to teach them, but simply by sharing his music and being himself, he inspired others to believe in their own potential. His mother remained his anchor through all of this. She celebrated every achievement, provided guidance when needed, and reminded him to stay grounded and focused on the joy of music rather than accolades. She encouraged him to be patient with himself, to enjoy the process, and to continue exploring the endless possibilities the piano offered. Her support was constant, unwavering, and nurturing, allowing him to grow without fear or pressure. The boy's understanding of music deepened with every performance and practice session. He discovered that each piece could express different emotions, tell unique stories, and connect with people in ways that words could not. He began to feel the responsibility that came with his gift, understanding that music could heal, inspire, and bring joy to those who needed it most. This realization strengthened his resolve to keep playing, to keep improving, and to share his talent whenever possible. One evening, after a long day of practice, the boy sat quietly at the piano, reflecting on all that had happened since the talent show. He remembered the nervousness he had felt before stepping on stage, the surprise and admiration in the eyes of his classmates, and the overwhelming joy of sharing his music with others. He realized how far he had come and how much he had grown. The piano had not only become an instrument for creating music, but also a companion, a teacher, and a guide in his journey of self-discovery. With each new piece he learned, each melody he created, the boy felt a deeper connection to the music and to the people who listened. He understood that his gift was not just about playing notes correctly, but about touching hearts and expressing emotions that could not be captured in any other way. The piano had become his voice, and he used it to communicate courage, hope, and joy. Every performance, whether in a school auditorium, a community hall, or a quiet room at home, became an opportunity to share that voice with the world. Through dedication, practice, and a love for music, the boy continued to grow as a pianist and as a person. He discovered the importance of patience, humility, and perseverance. He learned that challenges could be overcome with determination, that mistakes were opportunities to learn, and that the true reward of talent was not recognition, but the ability to inspire and connect with others. Music had given him a purpose, a sense of identity, and a way to share his heart with the world. And with every note he played, the boy knew that he had found his place, a place where he could shine, inspire, and be celebrated for exactly who he was. As the boy continued to grow, his love for the piano deepened even further. Each day, he would approach the instrument with a sense of wonder, eager to discover something new. He no longer saw it as just a collection of keys. It had become an extension of himself, a way to express feelings that words could not capture. The more he played, the more he realized that music was not just about performing for others. It was about connecting with emotions, both his own and those of the people who listened. Over time, the boy began to take on small challenges. He experimented with different types of music, exploring not only the classical pieces he had grown to love, but also contemporary songs, simple improvisations, and his own compositions. Each piece taught him something new, whether it was about rhythm, melody, or emotion. He began to understand that music could tell stories, share experiences, and create bonds between people who might never have met otherwise. The boy's reputation continued to grow. Word of his talent spread beyond the school and local community. People came to listen to him play, curious about the boy whose music could move hearts and silence doubters. Performances were no longer limited to small stages. He was invited to play at community events, charity gatherings, and even small festivals. Each time he performed, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement, but also a deep sense of purpose. He knew that his music could bring joy, comfort, and inspiration to others, and that knowledge gave him courage. Despite his growing recognition, the boy remained humble. He never played to impress or to seek approval. Instead, he focused on the music itself, allowing it to flow naturally through his fingers and into the hearts of his listeners. His mother continued to guide him gently, reminding him that talent alone was not enough. Dedication, patience, and a love for the craft were equally important. Together, they explored new melodies, practiced diligently, and celebrated every small success, reinforcing the bond that had always supported the boy's growth. The boy also began to notice the effect his music had on people. Some were moved to tears, others to smiles, and many simply listened in awe. Parents, teachers, and students alike were touched by the emotion and sincerity in his playing. Even those who had once doubted him or laughed at him were forced to reconsider their assumptions. Music had given him a voice, one that demanded respect and admiration. He understood that every performance was an opportunity not just to show skill, but to connect with people on a deeper level. At school, the boy became a symbol of perseverance and courage. His journey inspired other students, especially those who felt different or struggled to find their own strengths. They saw that despite challenges, it was possible to pursue a passion, develop talent, and earn respect. Teachers praised his determination and dedication, often using his example to encourage others to pursue their own interests. The boy did not seek this attention, but he quietly recognized that his journey had a ripple effect, touching lives in ways he had never imagined. The boy also began to understand that music was a lifelong journey. He realized that there would always be new techniques to learn, more complex pieces to master, and deeper emotions to explore. This understanding motivated him to practice diligently, always striving to improve, while maintaining the joy and authenticity that made his playing special. He discovered that growth was as much about patience and persistence as it was about talent. Outside of formal performances, the boy found joy in playing for small groups, or even for himself. These moments were intimate and personal, allowing him to experiment, create, and express himself freely. Sometimes he would close his eyes, letting the music guide him without thinking about how it sounded to others. These sessions reminded him why he loved music so deeply. It was a way to explore his inner world, to release emotions, and to find peace. They also reinforced the connection he felt to the piano, a trusted companion that had been with him since his earliest days of discovery. The boy's mother remained a constant presence, celebrating achievements, offering guidance, and encouraging exploration. She helped him navigate the challenges of growing recognition, teaching him to remain humble and focused on the joy of creating music. She emphasized that while accolades and applause were meaningful, they were not the purpose of his gift. The true reward was the ability to inspire, comfort, and connect with others through music. Her words resonated deeply with the boy, shaping not only his approach to music, but also his understanding of life. As the boy matured, he began to reflect on the journey that had brought him to this point. He remembered the early days, when the piano was just an intriguing instrument in the corner of the room, when he tapped randomly at the keys and hummed along without understanding. He thought of the hours spent practicing, the guidance of his mother, the laughter and doubt of his classmates, and the overwhelming applause that had first affirmed his talent. Each memory reinforced the importance of perseverance, patience, and self-belief. That he also realized the value of empathy and understanding. Music had taught him that every person had a story, and that talent could emerge in unexpected forms. The boy understood that differences were not limitations, but unique perspectives that could enrich the world. He wanted to share this lesson with others, using his performances not just to entertain, but to inspire kindness, respect, and appreciation for every individual's potential. The boy continued to perform, exploring new venues, connecting with diverse audiences, and expanding his musical repertoire. Each experience taught him more about expression, emotion, and human connection. He discovered that music was not just sound. It was a language that transcended barriers, a bridge between people, and a way to communicate truths that words could not capture. Every note he played carried a piece of his heart, his journey, and his understanding of the world. With every performance, the boy became more confident and self-assured. He learned to trust his instincts, to feel the music deeply, and to let it guide his hands and emotions. Audiences responded not just to his technical skill, but to the honesty, emotion, and dedication he conveyed. He understood that true artistry came from authenticity, from allowing the heart to speak freely through the instrument. This realization deepened his commitment to practice, to growth, and to the continual pursuit of excellence. The boy also found ways to inspire others directly. He began teaching younger children simple songs, encouraging them to explore music without fear or self-doubt. He shared his experiences, demonstrating that perseverance and dedication could overcome challenges, and that passion was a powerful motivator. Children who had once felt uncertain or timid were emboldened by his example, discovering their own talents and potential. Through these interactions, the boy reinforced the idea that music was not only a personal journey, but also a shared experience that could uplift and empower others. In quiet moments, the boy reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. He thought about the early days of practice, the laughter of classmates, the guidance of his mother, and the applause of audiences. Each memory reinforced the idea that challenges were opportunities, that talent could flourish with support and dedication, and that sharing one's gifts could have a profound impact. He felt gratitude for every person, every moment, and every note that had shaped his path. The boy's growth as a pianist mirrored his growth as a person. He became more empathetic, patient, and self-aware. He learned to balance humility with confidence, to embrace challenges with determination, and to celebrate both small and large accomplishments. Music had provided a framework for understanding the world, for connecting with others, and for expressing the depth of human emotion. Through his experiences, he discovered that talent was not an endpoint but a journey, one filled with discovery, connection, and fulfillment. As the boy looked toward the future, he envisioned a life filled with music, exploration, and connection. He dreamed of composing new pieces, performing for diverse audiences, and continuing to inspire others through his gift. He also hoped to encourage empathy and understanding, showing that every person, regardless of differences, had something valuable to offer the world. The piano had given him a voice, a sense of purpose, and a platform to make a positive impact. In every note he played, the boy carried the lessons of his journey, the importance of patience, dedication, and love for what one does, the value of empathy, respect, and understanding, and the power of courage, perseverance, and self-belief. His music became a testament to the potential within every individual, a reminder that brilliance can emerge in unexpected forms, and that with support, encouragement, and determination, anyone can shine. The boy continued to practice, perform, and grow, embracing every challenge and opportunity with enthusiasm and dedication. He understood that the path of a musician was never truly complete. There was always more to learn, more to explore, and more to share. Each day brought new melodies, new inspirations, and new connections, reinforcing the joy, purpose, and fulfillment that music brought to his life. And through it all, the boy remained grounded, humble, and committed to sharing his gift with the world, touching hearts, inspiring courage, and reminding everyone that every person has the potential to create beauty and make a difference.